Start your engines, but forget everything you know about standard hauling. Today, we are leaving the boring world of modern logistics behind to witness the absolute maddest creations ever to hit the asphalt. We are entering a timeline where engineers ignored every rule in the book to create hallucinations made of steel. What happens when you put a jet engine in a semi-truck, or design a pickup with absolutely no doors? In this video, we are counting down 10 of the weirdest old-school trucks that actually existed. These aren't just drawings, they are mechanical rebels that defied explanation. Buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments, which of these monsters would you dare to drive? Let's roll. If you think getting into a truck is as simple as opening a door, the 1967 Dodge Deora is here to prove you wrong. This vehicle is widely considered the world's coolest concept truck, but it has one glaring omission. It has no side doors, none. To enter the driver's seat, you have to perform a gymnastic feat. The entire front windshield is a hatch that swings upward on a pivot. You literally have to climb through the face of the truck, spin around, and drop into the bucket seats. It is an entrance that guarantees all eyes are on you. Underneath this radical chop-top skin lies the chassis of a humble Dodge A100 compact pickup. But the Deora was far from humble. Designed by the legendary Alexander brothers, it moved the trusty slant 6 engine further back into the bed, creating a mid-engine layout. This shift was necessary to accommodate that futuristic cab-forward design. Weighing in at roughly 3,000 pounds, it wasn't built for speed, topping out around typical highway speeds of 70 miles per hour. The steering wheel even had to be a swing-away model just to allow the driver's legs to pass through safely during entry. The Deora looks like it drove straight out of a sci-fi comic book and landed in the 1960s. It wasn't just a show pony, it was a fully functional vehicle that challenged the very definition of a pickup truck. It won the prestigious Riddler Award in 1967, cementing its place in custom car history not as a workhorse but as a piece of rolling art. While it never made it to mass production, likely because climbing through a windshield isn't practical for a delivery driver, it remains an icon. It forces us to ask, why be practical when you can be unforgettable? Travel back to the late 1930s, an era obsessed with the future. This was the age of Art Deco and streamlined moderne, where everything from toasters to trains was designed to look fast. The 1939 Dodge Airflow tanker is the ultimate expression of this philosophy applied to a heavy-duty truck. Commissioned by Texaco, these fuel tankers looked like futuristic locomotives cruising down the highway. The design features a continuous flowing body that seamlessly integrates the cab, the fenders, and the massive 200-gallon fuel tank into one smooth aerodynamic shape that turned heads everywhere it went. Technically, these trucks were marvels of their time. Dodge utilized a bridge truss construction for the tank itself, which acted as a structural component. This allowed for a lower center of gravity and better handling than the boxy, top-heavy tankers of the day. Weighing over 15,000 pounds when fully loaded, it was powered by a robust Dodge inline-6 engine. While it looked fast enough to break records, it was designed for steady cruising at around 45 to 50 miles per hour. The airflow wasn't just about vanity. The streamlining actually improved fuel efficiency, a critical factor for a fleet vehicle. They were painted in Texaco's bright red, becoming moving billboards that promised speed and modernity. However, the onset of World War II and the changing tastes of the 1940s meant the airflow era was short-lived. Most of these beautiful giants were driven into the ground during the war effort and eventually scrapped. Today, seeing a surviving airflow tanker is like spotting a dinosaur, a massive, elegant creature from a time when industrial design prioritized beauty just as much as function. It begs the question, why are modern fuel trucks so boring compared to this masterpiece? Imagine standing next to a semi-truck at a traffic light. You expect the deep, rhythmic chug of a diesel engine. Instead, you hear the high-pitched, piercing whine of a jet plane preparing for takeoff. You aren't hallucinating, you are looking at the Leyland gas turbine truck. In the 1960s and 70s, British manufacturer Leyland believed the future of long-haul trucking wasn't diesel, It was jet propulsion. They built a series of prototypes powered by regenerative gas turbine engines, capable of producing between 350 and 400 horsepower. It was a bold vision of a smoother, quieter trucking future. The engineering behind this was fascinating. The turbine engine had far fewer moving parts than a piston engine, meaning less vibration and a much smoother ride for the driver. Rated for a gross train weight of nearly 40 tons, it could cruise effortlessly at 70 miles per hour. It could run on almost any flammable liquid, diesel, kerosene, or jet fuel. Leyland fitted these engines into their ergomatic cabs, modifying the grille and intake to suck in the massive amounts of air the turbine required. On the highway, they were powerful beasts that signaled the arrival of the space age. So, why don't we drive jet trucks today? The reality was harsh. While the engine was simple, the heat it produced was intense. The exhaust was hot enough to melt the asphalt or singe the car behind it if the driver wasn't careful. Furthermore, fuel economy at idle was terrible. Turbines loved to run at full speed, not sit in traffic. Ultimately, the oil crisis of the 1970s killed the project, leaving the Leyland gas turbine as a fascinating what-if in automotive history. It remains a testament to a time when we tried to make trucks fly, figuratively speaking. If you visited Paris in the 1950s, you might have seen a vehicle that looked like it was designed by aliens for a sightseeing tour. This is the Citroën U55 Curus Cityrama. Built on the sturdy chassis of a Citroën U55 truck, the bodywork was crafted by the coach builder Curus to be the ultimate tour bus. It featured a double-decker design with a futuristic glass-enclosed upper deck and a bizarre jutting shark nose front end. It looked less like a bus and more like a spaceship cruising the boulevards of Paris, capturing the imagination of everyone who saw it. The goal was visibility. The Cityrama was designed to give tourists an unobstructed view of the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre. The amount of glass and steel used in this construction was staggering, pushing the total weight to nearly 10 tons. Mechanically, it relied on the standard Citroën drivetrain, which had to work incredibly hard to push this heavy, unaerodynamic glass brick through the city streets. Speed was not the priority here. It crawled along at leisure speeds, allowing tourists to take photos, although it struggled significantly on any steep incline due to its immense weight. However, the Cityrama had a fatal flaw: the greenhouse effect. With all that glass and no modern air conditioning, the interior would become an oven on sunny days. Tourists would literally bake inside their futuristic viewing capsule while trying to enjoy the architecture. Despite this, the Cityrama remains one of the most visually distinct vehicles ever made. It is a symbol of a time when the experience of the passenger was valued above all practical engineering concerns. It is weird, it is wonderful, and it is uniquely French. In the world of truck design, there is weird, and then there is Luigi Colani weird. The Schnibble Mobile is a prime example of Colani's philosophy of biodesign, the idea that there are no straight lines in nature, so there shouldn't be any in cars either. Built on the chassis of a Mercedes LP 608, this vehicle looks like a giant white insect or a melted spacecraft skimming the asphalt. The cabin is a bubble of glass and curves, completely detaching the driver from the traditional boxy truck environment. It stands as a radical departure from everything we know about cargo transport. This wasn't just an art project, it had a specific technical purpose. It was commissioned to test tires for high-speed performance. The bizarre shape was aerodynamically optimized to achieve an extremely low drag coefficient, far superior to any standard truck. This allowed the vehicle to reach higher testing speeds and maintain stability where a brick-shaped truck would fail. While the base Mercedes engine was standard, the aerodynamics allowed it to slice through the air with minimal resistance, proving that efficiency comes from shape, not just horsepower. The driver sat high up in a central cockpit, controlling the vehicle with a view that resembled a fighter jet pilot's perspective more than a trucker's. The Schnibble Mobile challenges our brain because it removes the familiar reference points of a truck. There is no flat grille, no square bumper, no vertical windshield. It is a fluid sculpture powered by a diesel engine. While Colani's designs were often dismissed as too radical for production, they pushed the boundaries of aerodynamics in trucking. But let's be honest, nothing on the road today looks as wild as this. Look at the front of a Tempo Matador and tell me it doesn't look like a sad puppy or a surprised fish. This German utility truck from the late 1940s is instantly recognizable by its face. The headlights are positioned low, giving it a distinct, almost anthropomorphic expression. But the weirdness isn't just skin deep, it's in the engineering layout. The Matador was one of the few front-wheel drive trucks of its time, a feature that gave it a completely flat cargo bed low to the ground. This made loading heavy goods significantly easier than in American trucks. To achieve this, the early Matadors used a 25-horsepower engine sourced from Volkswagen. Yes, just 25 horsepower to haul a payload of over 2,000 pounds. The top speed was barely 45 miles per hour if you were going downhill with a strong wind. But here's the catch. Volkswagen didn't want a competitor using their engines, so Tempo eventually had to switch suppliers to Austin or ILO engines. The engine was tucked right behind the cab, driving the front wheels. This layout was brilliant for space, but meant the poor little engine was constantly overworked. Despite its underpowered nature, the Matador was a hero of post-war reconstruction in Germany. It was simple, versatile, and the low loading height made it a favorite for delivery men and tradespeople. Today, they are incredibly rare and sought after by collectors who love that goofy, lovable face. It stands as a reminder that you don't need massive horsepower or an aggressive design to be a legend. Sometimes you just need a lot of character and a friendly face. In the 1950s, the Fagiel Twin Coach Company decided to rethink the delivery van. The result was a vehicle that looks like a giant beetle or a loaf of bread on wheels. The Fagiel Twin Coach delivery is defined by its incredibly round, bulbous shape. Unlike the sharp corners of modern FedEx or UPS trucks, the Fagiel had curves everywhere. It was designed with an integral frame construction, meaning the body and chassis were one unit. This monocoque design provided maximum interior space with a relatively short wheelbase, perfect for navigating tight city grids. This design was all about urban efficiency. The round shape wasn't just for style, it allowed the truck to navigate tight city alleyways without snagging its corners on buildings or other cars. Inside, the driver had a commanding view of the road through a split windshield. The engine was typically an International Harvester or similar reliable powertrain, tucked away to maximize cargo floor space. These trucks offered a massive interior volume of over 300 cubic feet, while remaining smaller than many passenger cars of the era. They were the backbone of postal services and bakeries. There is something undeniably cute about the Fagiel. It reflects the optimism of 1950s American design, where even a utility vehicle deserved to have style and presence. Seeing one today is a visual shock because we are so used to the utilitarian, boxy designs of modern logistics. The Fagiel proves that a delivery truck can have a soul and a silhouette that makes you smile. While most have rust away, the survivors are cherished as reminders of a time when your morning mail arrived in a giant friendly beetle. General Motors took a massive gamble in the 1960s with the Corvair, a car featuring an air-cooled flat-six engine mounted in the rear. They decided to apply this same radical architecture to a pickup truck, creating the Corvair 95 rampside. Because the engine was in the back under the bed, the rear floor had to be raised. This created a problem for loading cargo. GM's solution: a literal drawbridge on the side of the truck. The ramp side featured a massive door on the passenger side that folded down to create a solid ramp. This innovation allowed you to roll a wheelbarrow, a lawnmower, or heavy equipment straight into the deep well of the truck bed, right in the center of the vehicle. It was a stroke of genius. The truck was rated for a payload of roughly 1,800 pounds, and the forward control design meant the driver sat ahead of the front wheels. The rear engine layout provided excellent traction even when the truck was empty, a common issue for traditional light pickups. With about 80 to 95 horsepower depending on the year, it wasn't a powerhouse, but it was incredibly clever. However, the ramp side was undeniably weird. Driving it felt different. The steering was light, and the weight distribution was unlike anything else on the road. While the ramp was brilliant, the raised rear bed floor limited the space for large, flat loads like plywood sheets. Production ran only from 1961 to 1964, making it a short-lived experiment. It remains a cult classic today, a testament to a time when GM was willing to try completely different engineering concepts to solve everyday problems. Is it a luxury car? Is it a truck? The 1937 Studebaker Coupe Express is the grandfather of the El Camino, but it did it with infinitely more class. In the 1930s, if you bought a truck, you usually got a rough, bare-bones cabin. Studebaker changed that. They took the front end, chassis, and luxurious interior of their Dictator passenger sedan and seamlessly mated it with a steel pickup bed. The result was a vehicle that offered the comfort and style of a gentleman's coupe with the utility of a farm truck. Under the hood lay a smooth L-head inline-six engine producing about 90 horsepower. While that sounds modest today, in 1937 it allowed the Coupe Express to reach speeds of up to 85 miles per hour, significantly faster than the average truck of the day. It weighed roughly 3,300 pounds and featured a double-walled steel bed, proving it wasn't just for show. It was designed for the gentleman farmer or the business owner who wanted to haul goods during the week, but drive to church in style on Sunday without looking like a laborer. The production numbers were incredibly low, making the Coupe Express one of the rarest trucks in existence today. It stands out because it doesn't look like a Frankenstein creation. The lines flow perfectly from the hood to the tailgate. It represents a brief, beautiful moment in history where utility didn't have to mean ugly. It is, quite possibly, the most elegant pickup truck ever built, blurring the lines between work and leisure decades before the modern luxury truck market even existed. We end our list with a truck that might look more familiar but was a revolution in its own right. The DAF 3300 Space Cab. Before this truck arrived in the 1980s, long-haul European truckers lived in cramped, miserable boxes. You couldn't stand up. You could barely move. Dutch manufacturer DAF looked at this and said, "No more." They introduced the concept of the high-roof sleeper, creating a literal apartment on wheels. The Space Cab was weird at the time because of its proportions. It looked like a block of flats moving down the highway. But inside, it was a revelation. For the first time, a driver could stand up fully to put on their trousers. It featured better insulation and a turbocharged, intercooled 11.6-liter diesel engine, producing up to 330 horsepower. This engine was a beast, capable of pulling gross combination weights of 40 tons across continents with ease. The squared-off, boxy design was purely functional, maximizing every inch of volume allowed by European length regulations. It turned the driver's seat from a place of work into a place of living. While it lacks the curves of the Art Deco era or the jet engines of Leyland, the DAF 3300 is on this list because it changed the human experience of trucking. It proved that a truck could be a home. Every massive sleeper cab you see on the American highways today owes a debt of gratitude to this boxy Dutch pioneer that dared to prioritize the driver's comfort above all else. It reminds us that sometimes the weirdest idea is simply treating the operator like a human being. From trucks with no doors to buses made of glass and engines that sound like jet planes, we've seen that the history of trucking is anything but boring. These engineers didn't just build vehicles, they built dreams, experiments, and sometimes beautiful mistakes. If you could park just one of these weird machines in your garage, which one would it be? The futuristic Deora or the elegant Studebaker? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this ride through history, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of amazing machines. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next road trip.